Hey, good evening, guys. This is Ken and Kevin. We're doing a quick one on some 30-minute swing framing. This is coaching uh, Tuesday night cohort, uh, March 11th, 2025. Thank God that thing was on my computer bar. I would not have any idea what month, day, or year it is, to be honest. Just it's funny that way.
Yeah, I know.
It's a deliberate an act of will too. Hey, what is this Zoom session? We coaching or podcasting or what's going on here?
Need to have one of those big flashing on air and then
Yeah,
just a detail below with a little clipper, click, click,
yeah,
whatever they call that tapper thing.
yeah. Well, here's kind of how I look at this. Let me go back and find a high enough turning point so we can really see that. Yeah, that's kind of a that double and triple top was the actual peak of joy,
Hmm.
and so right around in here, this was. Sorry, get my pen going here. Yeah, so this was peak. This was the first kind of collapsing dragon that was available when you have the lower high. So you on that one, that's the trigger. Oops. Yeah, that's the collapsing dragon right there.
Okay. And that would be in one day at a time kind of trade, that one too.
Yeah. So when I have a long set of things like this, you know, and it starts going up, just a continuation right there. Because all I'm doing is just saying, look, as long as if this thing is going up, I don't care so much about the upper limits as I do, am I getting higher lows? Because then I always feel
Hmm.
like that's the real that's the real trend right there. And these are interesting. How far does it stretch? You know,
Yeah.
but it really is the rising lows that matter. So every time that thing turns, I put that collapsing dragon right there because if I'm looking at
So in the 30-minute, did your collapsing dragon go still at the RL10, the turn, the
yep,
peak,
yep,
or are you
nope,
actually going at the low of the?
no, at the point of the
Okay. All right.
yeah, so it's like this one right here. It's that first, it's the beginning PSAR dot in the whole series. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
because that's where because we're using the RL10 to compute the PSAR when
Yeah.
it
So right
flips.
there where you just were,
Yeah.
would that have been a tip? Would you have been tipped in? Or or is it
Uh,
when it's actually painted? You wouldn't know
yeah,
that
yeah. I
that's
wouldn't have
a
known that because this painted right here.
yeah. So you'd have to have that collapse.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So
I get
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So and it has just it's turned right there.
Yeah.
That one doesn't really trigger till here
Yeah.
as a collapsing dragon. Now you get a kata two right here because you have
Lower
lower
high.
highs.
Yeah.
Right. As long as that happens, this is my little triangle thing here.
So then those turns become so important for swing trading and also
Yeah.
intraday. Once the
Yeah.
turn happens, then you're basically your bias is the away from the turn until demonstrated
Yeah.
otherwise,
So
or
so right here, if I'm right here,
hmm.
that's the equivalent. That's this pattern right here. Right. So that's a kata two on the 30, which means that is a really good intraday trade. Like if you could get short, yeah, I could take this and go to either a 3 or a 10 minute.
Hmm.
And what you'd see in that is probably you'd already see on the 3 or the 10 a collapsing dragon right there. And now you've got an intraday collapsing dragon potentially to here.
Yeah.
And
To here. Yeah.
that's
Okay.
where the test is going to occur. Now it may or may not find support there. It could become like it could do this. Oops, go with the blue. It could do this. Sorry, it's supposed to be blue. So it could come to here and then do this. Um, that's a kata 2 until it breaks above this.
And you have an emerging dragon.
Yeah, now it's an emerging dragon here, and then it's the second level to an
So,
emerging
okay. So
dragon
then
here, and then that's the one where it's officially
when,
a breakout from the highest high.
yes. So the
So
one
so I
below
use the
that, the
30.
next,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
that's where you, okay, your rule of four then, when you had that caught at two, you just drew the turquoise line, the lowest one, turquoise line
Right here.
there, that one.
Yeah.
So how would you draw the rule of four for entry on that caught at two?
I
Or
would
does
go
that not
down to the
apply?
3 and the 10
And then draw it there.
and draw it there because this
Okay,
little
okay, okay.
pink.
That's what I think. That's what I'm getting at. I'm like, every time I draw them, they're too far away. I missed it, right? So
Yeah.
you're saying use the turning points on the 30 to draw them on the 10 because I'm focusing on the 10. I'm trying to stay away from the three
Right. Yeah.
presently.
I think the 10 is sufficient. So what I would do on this one is I see a turning point on the 30, and now I'm in kata 2 on the 30. I'm now going to go down to the 3 and 10 and look for the patterns that I love, which could be a kata 2 here, or better is a collapsing dragon
Dragon there. Yeah.
because it's already officially violated that support level, and now that thing's running away. And this is going to on the 3 and the 10. That looks like a collapsing dragon running away. But on this, and see on this one, it actually went for over an hour. It went for an hour. That was 5 or 6 bars,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and it did not even get to test this channel. And so when that fails, it's supposed to fail through there. When that doesn't, then that sets up this trade. And now, as this thing starts getting on, this one's on the way up. I'm really checking here until it breaks above this. That channel is intact. And instead of going above, it rolled over again. And now here's your collapsing dragon on the 30. And look what
Which
that
should be
thing
a
did.
great.
1,
Yeah.
2, 3.
Yeah.
That was a $5 move,
Yeah.
or maybe even a little more. That's probably an $8 move. That's 1.5% on that one. And then it rebounds. It comes up here on the 30. It doesn't even break through the
The collapsing
PSAR.
dragon line.
Yeah, it
PSAR.
did.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it doesn't even break through the PSAR. The PSAR continues. And
That's hard. That's hard to hold though.
that's right. Well, my point is when this rolls
I get
over,
it. When it doesn't, when it rolls over, then that's an
then this
yeah.
becomes another high priority kata 2 on the 30 minute, and that
Yeah.
gives you another $4 move here.
Yeah.
Now, when this one does not fail further, this one breaks the PSAR. Now that whole thing, now I'm going to draw that. Now that whole structure from here has fallen through this one and given you another full leg down and held. And now that feels like fuzzy support, and it breaks out amazing. That's the start of a new day.
Yeah.
That's just a breakout of a new day. And
Yeah.
then when that thing breaks on the 30, look, you've got the RL10 has rolled over. It broke the PSAR. That's a COTA 2. It's also the RL10 going through the SMA 30 on the 10s. And then that thing goes smashing down for the rest of the day. And then the next morning it gaps and it sells off hard for an hour and then does not fail further. And now I get a 1, 2, 3 and some shit. I can be thinking about an SSC on the 30. I won't lose money on that trade on the 10s. And now it rolls over at the SMA 30. And now I've got the move I want, which is 590 to 570. That's a 4% move.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah.
And then another 4% move. And then another 4% move. So it's like the turning points on the 30
Yeah.
is a failure to follow through on the 30, which means it's the start of a reversal. And so if you were just trading the 30s, a move from there on the 30s, it looks like a straight line. That might actually look like 1, 2, 3 legs on an RL10. All of which. So anyway, I find the turning points on the 30, mark the key price levels, and then drop down to the 10 where I'm drawing the rules for
So where
intraday
when you
trade.
recommend, and I think I really like that. I know why you're like, because I think this makes more sense that there's less chop in the 30, right? So
Yeah.
as far as less fake outs and chop because they're kind of absorbed inside the candles, I think. But you still have enough information to be useful intraday.
Yeah. Here's
So,
today.
and if I do that, then so am I just framing on the 30 and then watching if when I'm intraday in the morning, my 2 or 3 hours, am I framing only with a 30 before
Well,
and then just
let's
watching the
take a
10?
look at this moment
What
right
chart
here.
am I looking at, or am I looking at both all day?
So here's the 30 today, and maybe whether you traded this other piece or not, it's now after lunch. It's just moved from 560 to 550. That's a
Yeah.
2% move. Double bottom, closed at the extreme, opened at the extreme, crossed
Took
above.
off. Yeah.
And this is right in here. That thing is, you can already, as soon as this thing opens here and starts going up, you don't even have to wait for that to paint. You know that this was the bottom. And you just say, look, from right here, the least surprising move would be a return to the SMA 30.
Hmm.
So you just make that, you say, look, there's 564. This is 550. That's about $15. Call it 16. So that means $4 off the bottom, somewhere right around. So if I go here, and this is on the 30.
Yeah, it actually worked here. Yeah.
So this tells me that somewhere somewhere around 555, the 30 period would justify an entry. It's about a 1, 2, 3. Is it 1, 2, 3?
Yeah.
And the PSAR is going to flip here. So, but I got to make that decision. If I'm trading on the 30s, notice where I'm entering. I'm entering at the same place that if I had been short, in here somewhere, because this thing rolled over and it came through the dragon. So if I'm short here, imagine this didn't get me out. Or maybe I got
Yeah.
short again here.
Yeah.
Because now I'm below the VWAP and this whole thing It peaked, it bottomed, it peaked, it now see the slowness, the RL10 on the 30s hardly even budges. It just keeps doing this shit. So when you see
Yeah.
this on the 30, that's a it's avoiding the RL10 and it rolled over.
Those
So
are
in
the
this
ones
case,
that's what I find the most confusing, which I need to
yeah.
just
So
work
I
on.
just I look at here's a
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. It got to the edge of the dragon. The PSAR is intact. It rejected that and is now starting to fail. And right here, it went below the VWAP. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I all other things being equal, I can justify being short right here. Get my red.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can justify being short right there. Because this whole thing rolled over and it crossed, hard to see, but that's the VWAP right there.
Yep.
It,
I
it
see it.
rolled over. It rolled over. It didn't even get to the PSAR. And now it crossed below the VWAP. And it's only noon. And Trump sucks. So now imagine I'm short. And I'm short, and I'm short, and I'm short. And now it opens at the low of the previous candle and starts moving up. Where do I have to exit? The skin of the dragon.
Yeah.
In order to preserve this much gain. To
Yeah.
preserve that red box, I have to get out here. And so the fact that this is a strong enough signal to exit the short, that's an area where I have to consider getting long.
Long. Yeah.
Because you have this. So I got short somewhere in here. And now I got to cover. That should be green. I got to cover here. Well, here's my rule of 4 now. And that's this. In this case, I'm
Yeah.
getting back
And
to
then
the
and you
SMA
could put
30. And
yeah,
that's the
put your
super
stop down there
low.
or
So
yeah,
now
put your stop down there. Yeah.
there's my quarter. And there's my 1, 2, 3. So I have to be thinking about getting. Now that's 554. That's 556. So that's 555, right? With a stop at whatever that is. That's got to be 550. So I got a
Yeah.
$4 stop and I have an opportunity to make $12, right? Which is
Yeah. And it did. Yeah.
so now what I'm going to remember that this is right around 2 o'clock. So I'm going to go take a look at all of that now. So this is what that thing, when it bottomed out from this little, that's where, when this thing crossed over and went below the VWAP, your short signal is in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Right away. Just right. That's a 1, 2, 3 short. 1,
Yeah. Yeah.
2,
Still not
3.
seeing those, but I gotta work on
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
You could actually get short here. Rejected the the SMA 30 and crossed the VWAP.
Yeah.
And
But it looks prior to that, it looks like chop to me. So I'd struggle with that short. The
well,
next one would make,
this is
yeah.
chop for sure. This was
Yeah.
an urge downward. This was an urge upward. Here's where the RL10 rolls over. I got to be short here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that one makes the most sense to me. Yeah.
So I'm short.
Yeah.
And now here's this thing rejected. You got to see that as the lower high. And the SMA 30 or the RL 30 is rolling over. So this is, you're holding through here. It makes another urge down. And now you're thinking, shit, this was probably my stop. 560, can't draw a straight line. That's like that's $2 or $3.
Nice. Yeah.
Drawing with a fucking mouse. Um, so now that I was able to hold through here, I'm still in the money, never went into the red. And then it gives me this vote of confidence and broke the PSAR. Awesome. Now I'm down here, gives me a bottom, opens where it closed, comes up to here and closes above the RL10. That's a failure to fail. So
Yeah.
there's a 1, 2, 3. This is at 553 ish. 554 was what we said was the
Yeah.
entry
In
of
10 minute or 30 minute. Yeah.
no, the quarter post on that.
Yeah.
That's an entry at 554 with a $4 stop, which is well down here. And then this was probably
So then, or is your
it
stop
was
based on
probably
the
this.
30 minute? Is my stop based on a 30-minute chart then, not the 10?
I would position size off the stop on the 30.
Okay.
So on the 30, it did this,
And then do a
and you
technical
got an
stop on
entry
the
at
10.
554,
Yeah.
and you said, hey, on the 30-minute, that's a $4 stop. So if I'm risking $400, $4 stop, I can have 100 shares.
Yeah.
So
But
now
you're
I'm
not going to
trading.
wait $4 on the 10-minute
Yeah,
chart if it's going against you.
on this one, if I got long here, and that's at 554, and the PSAR flip is at 552.75. That's only a buck 75. $2 would be here. $4 would be way down there. So I'm not going to ever let it get below this. So
Yeah.
I've already
Okay.
capped my
Yeah.
loss. Now, as you look at that, you could now say, well, on the basis of the 30-minute, I could buy 100 shares here with a $4 stop, but secretly, I've just got a $2 stop. So what I have is I could have bought 200 shares, but I bought 100.
100. Yeah.
And
So it's a safer trade. More relaxed that way.
right here,
Yeah.
I'll buy another 100, either here, or as it's crossing the SMA 30.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it's like, hey, it now got through the VWAP and the SMA 30, and up it goes. And here's where the RL10 crosses the SMA 30. So that's a signal that 70% of the time you're going to make money. And it would have, because what they tested was if I then use the SMA 30 as my stop loss, that rule set allowed you to get this and then come all the way back down and exit here,
Yeah.
which is nuts. Because as soon as I see this and my entry is here on the 10s,
Yeah.
I'm at 564 and this was 554. Well, that's convenient. That's $10. So if I'm going to keep 554 plus $7 is 561. So when this peaks, my stop is here. It probably, depending on how this printed, I'm out either here or here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thank you very much. I get the trade from here to there.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll take that forever. So that's what I'm doing. I'm marking off the turning points on the 30. And I'm actually using the peaks of the price, I think is better, because you might as well. Like I would stretch it from here.
Yeah. For the little amount for on the entire.
And then on this one, from this point, I just look north. Where's the logical, the reversion to the
Yeah.
mean trade? And that doesn't feel stupid, because I see that
That was yesterday.
as
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
support level that broke. Like it had 5 bars and it stayed below the declining VWAP and then broke here. So this SMA 30 is a return to that that 5 bar consolidation. So now that's where I get the 564
Yep.
and 550-ish. So that's actually $14, which is $4.50. So you gotta be you gotta be looking to enter right about it. But even on that, I can already tell by inspection that the southern skin of the dragon, because that's a good exit on a good short trade, that now makes you wonder. This is like, hey, that's the unit of risk, and now I can see three.
Hmm.
I could either just hold my nose and buy half a position here, or buy $100, or buy
Yeah.
100 shares. I mean, and know that I got 3 to 1. And I'm actually looking, when this thing gets through the VWAP. I got my fingers crossed. Gets through the PSAR, fingers crossed. It closes, it opens, sells off a little bit, does not get into the dragon, breaks out above there. That's the first place that I breathe anything like a sigh of relief in that
Right.
market.
There's a lot of patience involved in a 30-minute chart.
Yeah. And that's why, I can look at the 30 and I have to start
You call
making,
it casual, but it's actually just,
it's hard as shit because you have restricted your information flow.
yeah, I know. And I think that's really just
And
why I keep
that's
pushing
why
back,
as soon as you get
is I
this
just got to
entry,
do it.
as soon as you get that framing here, I think you got to then go down to the 10-minute and see what's
Yeah.
happening inside that little range, and you'll see clearer patterns.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and you'll be able to see the absolute value of that price level here, the anchor on your, and it's moving, and you'll see the clear price level for entry, and that'll actually look $4 on the 10-minute chart. Looks like a really wide stop.
Yeah. Really wide. Yeah. So if I for it right now, then what I think for the week, if I it's logical that I watch them. Like I'm just trying to get back into this,
Yeah.
but and I'm trying to figure out the 30. So I'm gonna lay my 10 and my 30 beside each other and watch them what happens between the two.
So
And
here's what I'm going to look at for tomorrow. If it if it opened right on that number, no gap, I would probably be short right there as a COTA 2, hoping to see, because
yeah,
the PSAR dot will print there. And then this is the RL10 belly right there. And then that's the absolute value of the yesterday's low.
yeah, low, yeah,
So that's my mechanical, 5 cents below yesterday's low.
yeah,
So if I'm going to get short at any of those in that little region, I just like to say, well, let me get short here below the belly of the dragon, kind of, and then front run that whole move. Because if that starts collapsing tomorrow, it looks like those 3 bars, you know.
right,
But then if it opens here and then breaks above this peak of the RL10, I'm long above 558 just because. And then I'll breathe a sigh of relief if it gets through 562. Like I think the stop right now in the S&P is $4.
yeah,
So if I get long at 558, then my stop is down here at 554, which is the belly of the dragon. I feel like that's a legitimate risk box right there. So I'll go long from here, and that's going to test right there. It has to. There will be some hesitation. If there's
yeah,
any hesitation, I'm going to keep 70% of that trade.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
But if
yeah,
it breaks north of this, dude, it's going to go to yesterday's high. There's no resistance from in here.
yeah,
And then there was the gap. So there's no resistance in here either.
yeah,
Both of those regions from 564 to 574, that's a fast move. So I don't mind taking a spec on this one right here, locking it in R, and then seeing what it does at the peak of this little move. And then see, does it actually get across that gap quick? Does it just keep going right on through? So there's a lot of questions it has. That's the wall of worry that it has to climb on the
Hmm.
way up. And then if it gets above 578, we're just going to say, well, of course, freaking Trump is a stable genius. You know. So
Yeah.
north of 578, what's that look like on a daily chart? 578 is way up in here. That's like a 3-day high. That's this. That's this. So if this reverses and I can get long around 560 with a $4 stop, it gets above today's high, yesterday's high, 3 days high. That's the ladder of worry that it has to climb. But that's a $16 move.
Hmm.
So I feel like this is justified. And then if this starts failing, I feel like if it falls below here, I'll be out. I might even be short. If it fails below here, I have to be short.
Yeah.
So I would try to just cut my loss right there and stop and reverse.
Yeah. And get used to that. Yeah.
So you have to make quicker decisions off the bars. You have to infer what's going on. But if I went
Yeah. And
down
I
to
think
those
that's
time frames,
the,
I could look at it and see.
yeah, but there's a patience. It's still, I
Yeah.
understand that it suits my will, my desire to take time to process. I am inferring,
Yeah.
which I think I'll get comfortable with over time.
Yeah.
I just have to commit to it, right?
Yeah. If when I am using these longer bars, I now have to start making inferences based on even little things like the real body of that candle is this.
Yeah.
So now when this thing opens below here and cruises up, and it only gets halfway into that body of that thing and then starts rejecting, as soon as it goes below yesterday's close, I'm short.
Yeah.
And then when it goes through yesterday's low, a second short, which I end up having to cover somewhere in here.
So if I'm watching both the 10 and the 30, and I had them side
Yeah.
by side, I should see those things. I should see the
Yeah.
points of entry on the
Yeah.
10, but
Yeah.
you're saying the points of
Well, yeah.
inflection that matter are on the 30. And if I can see both and I start reconciling those two,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Watch out.
I should be able to learn. Eventually I learn your inferences because that's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
To me, it's
Yeah.
like,
Well,
and
let's take a look at the,
is that
let's look
okay
at
way
this.
for me to trade then
Yeah.
for now?
That's a
Yeah.
way to do it. Now, let's here's why I like TC 2000 is because when I put this inference bar right there at the skin of the dragon, I'm gonna make that a big fat red line, right?
Hmm.
I have to get long at 553 or 555. I mean, so now when I drop down to a 10, there's your
Yeah. Big line. Yeah.
dude. That's a 1, 2, 3 entry. It's on the far side of the dragon. You have a $2.5 or $3 stop to the low of the day here. You using $4 as your position
Yeah.
sizing stop, and you got 560 was the I think was the upside on this. 560, 564 was the SMA 30. So if I put a big fat 564, that's my trade. Is let me make that green. I have to be getting an oops. I have to be getting an entry somewhere in here. Right? And my target's got to be somewhere up in here. So now when I drop to the 10, this thing that's where that's happening. And then my target is up here and it's almost at the penny.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, there's more clarity up there. Okay, cool. That's good.
I'm probably just going to use this as the podcast video for tonight. Just because there was no.
You did a great job. That was
there was no secret.
Yeah.
Secret.
Yeah. You think the thick skull would pick this stuff up quicker, but man.
I just there's
I'm struggling with a bit, but
the onion skin is layers and layers thick.
Yeah, I know.
And you got to drill through. You got to drill through the conscious competence, because you got to drill all the way to the unconscious incompetence, which is awareness of fear, and you got to satisfy all of those different stakeholders inside your psychology, down in your shadow. The shadow part of us is the part that we reject and we fear and we don't want to deal with. We think we can discipline our way out of it, but it's just there collecting puzzle pieces and evidence. It's like a little forensic scientist of fear. And then if you have any kind of challenges, it'll come to court and say, well, you see, I've known all along that there was this problem. But you haven't been listening. So it uses shame and whatnot. So we got to, until we engage the shadow and deal with the things that we worry about the most, you can't develop unconscious competence, because your conscious mind recognizes that we haven't handled the trust issue.
Yeah.
The satisfying the fear center. You have to respect the fear center and say, what would it take to persuade you that I am doing my due diligence? What it takes to persuade the fear center is due diligence looks like overkill to the rational, optimistic mind, which has already seen the upside so many times. You got to persuade me, I believe. We're trying to persuade the fear self that we haven't gone off the deep end because of greed. We've been burned too many times where what was actually greed, which we rationalized as evidence and discipline and skill, but was actually had an element of greed. We've seen ourselves rationalize that so many times that the fear self is justified in saying, yeah, you keep saying the words of evidence, but you haven't addressed my worries yet. So we got to know that and embrace the shadow side of ourselves. So if you take a look at some of the things I posted yesterday and the day before on framing and priming and those animal spirit avatars. So the owl is my affirmative talisman and spirit animal. To me, it is the embodiment of the rational sniper. So I've actually taken the intuitive feelings about the owl, and it's very strongly aligned with the rational training process of the sniper. So I've actually sort of fused my intuitive self and my rational self. But in that same persona definition, there is a comment about the owl and its shadow. What is the shadow of the owl? It's a over trusting its own skills and intuitions, especially if reinforced with a rational trading plan, and might be neglecting its own risk management precisely because of its expertise. And that's my problem too. Is like I'll just cut a corner here, and there it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we got to do is say, because I'm not worried about my shadow, I'm going to account for it and respect it and protect it, because that's the void, that's the turning point in price in the gray area. You know, that alerts you that, hey, dude, you got to. That's why I would say, look at look at last night's session whenever I finish. I guess still
Okay,
spend
I'll
some
watch for
time
that. Yeah.
on the BBAI. The story stocks on the upside and the power of the keep 70%. Oh my God, was that good?
Okay, I'll watch for that.
Yeah. So that'll be up shortly.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, man. We'll get this loaded up.
All right.
This will be the podcast for tonight. I'm just too tired now.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks, Ken.
All right, man. Take good care.
Have a good evening. See ya.